Evoke Media, I'm Sabrina Mirage Naeem. With me is Cassia Binkowski, and this is Breaking Glass, a series of conversations with women around the world who are shattering glass ceilings and challenging social norms. They are audacious, gutsy, and their stories are echoed across borders and generations in a rallying cry that is changing the narrative for women everywhere. Today's conversation is with Sarah Doubledam, founder and CEO of Darling Magazine. Sarah founded the company with a commitment to reinvent the narrative around womanhood, to produce content that was authentic and meaningful to women who were tired of being pigeonholed and boxed in by mainstream media. A few years into that journey, she led the magazine to make a radical commitment to never retouch the women they photograph.
Yes. Sabrina, Darling was the first magazine in the United States to commit to no retouching. And I loved hearing Sarah reflect on both the motivation for and the implications of that decision. We're talking about what it looks like to really take the road less traveled, to defy the status quo, to reflect a more nuanced and authentic image of womanhood through both pictures and storytelling.
Absolutely. And Sarah shares her own evolution from modeling to entrepreneurship to motherhood, and we are here for it. Take a listen. So Sarah, I'd love to start the conversation at the beginning of your career in media. Before you were leading Darling Magazine, which is a story we'll get into momentarily, you were a model for 6 years. You were represented by one of the top modeling agencies in LA. And we'd love to hear a little bit about that experience, what it was like for you. Tell us kind of the good, the bad, the ugly.
Sure. So I fell into that because I needed some extra money on the side. I just randomly went to an open call and then got signed, and I was like, great, I have no idea what's happening. Let's do this. And it was a wild ride. I think a lot of it was fun and was creative for me. I think that, working with photographers and stylists and the whole team on a shoot can be really great. I worked for clients like Target and Kohl's, or more commercial stuff like Chase Bank, and I was always the backyard barbecue mom type vibe. But I think that the hard part about it to me was just over and over and over seeing how narrow the beauty standards are. Like when you go into an agency, they measure you with a tape. They measure the width of your neck and your shoulders and your bicep and your forearm and your wrist and, all the way down your legs. And then, every time when you walk in or go to visit your agents, it's like, hello, but then they look you up and down, from top to bottom. And one time I remember walking in and my agent said, I think that, we have this big athletic brand that's wanting to book you, but it looks like you've, gained a little bit of weight. Like, what have you been doing to work out? And just, being greeted with that type of response is just so physical. And I understand that, modeling is trying to display clothing, and that makes sense. But I was just really tired of the measuring, and then every time you go into an audition, there's a sheet that you fill out that says hips, waist, bust, and you have to fill that out every time. So over and over and over, you're just thinking about what size you are and how that equates to how beautiful you are all the time. And so for, a certain client, they're like, we're looking for only girls this size, and I know a lot of that has changed in, the past 10 years, which is amazing. But for me, I think that monotony, it was hard and it was depressing, and it just makes you think all the time about how you look. And that was really part of, what prompted me to think about Darling and like, who created these standards? Why are they so narrow? And why are we playing this game over and over and over again?
I can't imagine being under that level of scrutiny every day, that kind of so specific, physical. I mean, you said that you're being kind of compared, you're being measured, I think physically measured, like with a measuring tape, but also measured against everyone else who's showing up to these calls, these casting calls or these modeling calls. And the pressure of that is so intense. The pressure of that is really something that physically, I think, weighs heavy. And I just want to kind of go back to what you alluded to, which is that things have maybe shifted industry wide over the last 10 years. Because from the outside looking in, the industry seems to have evolved tremendously. You're seeing now so much more of a spectrum of shape and size and color, but the standards seem still impossibly high, that standards of perfection. So, what are you seeing as now an outsider looking in terms of industry evolutions? What are the things that have changed and what are the things that are still the same?
I think what's definitely changed is in, very large corporations like Target, just seeing all different types of women all over the store in windows going down the street. I mean, that is amazing to me. I think still though, there's still categories, that you're still a straight model or you're a plus model, so there's still these buckets that we're putting people in. And I understand people wear different sizes of clothes. And of course, stylists have to know, what size you are. But it's also really interesting to think about just the idea of, tokenism versus just authentic beauty, where it's like, okay, we're doing a shoot, so we have to have all of these people in it. And sometimes it just feels so contrived, where it's like, why not have a shoot with just all the people look one way, or like, so it's really hard to strike that balance. And I understand, I've been guilty of that in the past when I'm, directing photo shoots, because you want to make sure everyone's represented, but still there's all these different categories. So I think we could definitely move toward how does it still feel just even more authentic.
It makes perfect sense. It also seems like an impossibly hard job to do, which we're going to get into in a second. And before we do, I'm curious kind of what was the impact on your mental health when you're inside that space? I mean, the media has a very complicated relationship with women's mental health at large. And here you were on the inside of it. Here you are, being subjected to that scrutiny. Like what you're describing makes me cringe. I don't have a scale in my house. I never have. I never want to. So that level of scrutiny is, unfathomable to me. What did that look like for you on the inside? How hard was that mentally and physically?
Yeah, during that time, there was about a 2-year period where I went through a really, really long bout of anxiety and depression where I could hardly drive on the freeway. I would get extreme panic attacks, and I didn't really equate it to that. I was like, why am I so sad and having all these issues all the time? But looking back, I'm like, I think it was just the monotony of that day to day and not really working from my strengths. I'm creative and I'm a writer, and there's so many other things to me besides how I look. And so just having your work every day be focused on that, it just made me start to question, like, what is my purpose? Is this all I'm here for? And I'm getting older, and my agent said I'm gaining weight, and just thinking about that over and over is just not healthy, because we're all whole people. Like, part of us is how we look, but so much more is what's going on inside. And I think it was just too much focus on external for me, and I wasn't really working within my passions.
What was the tipping point for you? When did you decide to walk away?
Well, I had started Darlene while I was still doing some modeling on the side because I couldn't afford to run my company. I was, I still had that. So I was like, oh, I'll do this campaign here and there if a shoot comes up. And so it was about a year into Darlene when I was able to quit. And I felt like I was playing both sides, because Darlene was obviously a movement, I wouldn't say against all the modeling and all the models and all the agents, but just an alternative and a different perspective on what beauty can look like. And so it was being in the middle of that industry that was really educational and awesome for me to see, while I was working on something that was an alternative type of movement for women. So it was actually really helpful to be in the middle of it, because I could see it all and I knew how it was functioning and what was causing it and, everything it stemmed from. So that was really interesting to be doing both of those things for a while, and then finally being able to quit and then starting to work with my old agents, booking models for my magazine. It was amazing.